DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including especially yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one daily show, one daily masterclass. That's what you're listening to right now. That is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is: there is no such thing as an underpaid entrepreneur. That's an oxymoron. It does not actually exist. And before I even get into why I'm talking about this, first let me remind you or inform you that I have a text line where I want you to text me and tell me the best insight that you got from today's masterclass, or if I gave you something that maybe you had thought about in the past, or something you heard in the past, or maybe you were even doing but you got away from it for a while. I reminded you of something, or if you have a follow-up question, or you just want to get my daily motivation text messages, just send a text to that number. And the number is 305-384-6894. It is down below in the show notes just in case you didn't catch it. Again, it's 305-384-6894. Now, the reason that I'm talking about what I'm talking here today is specifically as a follow-up to what I talked about back in episode 1862. The topic in 1862 was, if you want to be a creator or an influencer, listen to this now. Now, this is a topic that matters a lot to me because I know I have a lot of people in my audience who are either in that space of being a creator or influencer, or you want to get into that space, or at least some part of your business, some part of what you do is based on putting content out there on the internet. I know this because I hear from these people. I work with a lot of these people. Some of them have been coaching clients of mine. Many of them have bought products and services from me. And just from what I do, you attract who you are. I'm the type of person who, how much content do I put out there? I put a lot of content out every single day. I got started, at least when it came to notoriety on the internet, was through putting videos on a platform like YouTube. This is before we were really calling it the creators, or before we were even using phrases like social media and influencer, and we definitely didn't have the creator economy at that time. But this is what a lot of people are doing now. Now people are growing up and they're aspiring to be full-time creators. They're aspiring to be full-time influencers because, listen, from the outside looking in, this looks like a pretty fun job. It looks like actually relatively easy as well. I mean, all you had to do is show your personality on camera, and you already have a camera right there in your pocket, and make money from it. I mean, who wouldn't sign up for a job like that? It looks pretty simple. Why doesn't everybody do it? Well, there are many reasons why everybody doesn't do it. I explained that first in episode 1690, the secret that social media platforms don't want you to know. I talked about it many times before then, but I did a whole episode on it in 1690. I'm going to keep referring to that episode until everybody in the world has listened to it, and I can see the number of downloads. The whole world hasn't listened yet, so we're not at 8 billion yet. So listen to episode 1690 and in episode 1862, which was, that episode was inspired by an article written by Miss Taylor Lorenz, who is a writer for the New York Times. She wrote this article detailing, it wasn't detailing, let me not say, that's giving too much credit to the quality of that article. But she was exploring, there's a better word, how creators feel as if they are kind of getting the short end of the stick as creators when it comes to how much money they're making from social media and doing social media as a full-time job. And I gave a mouthful to that topic in episode 1862. You probably remember it was only a couple weeks ago. But what happened actually today, the day that I'm recording this, I'm browsing through Twitter, and I follow the New York Times on Twitter, even though whenever New York Times gets into talking about anything race or politics related, they're reporting, if you even want to call it that. It's not even reporting anymore. Now it's mostly opinion, but they call it reporting, is very skewed and heavily in one direction. And you can guess what direction that is, with which I can notice it. It's not even whether I agree or not, but I notice that they're doing it. So I don't really like anything when they talk about those topics. When they talk about other topics though, their writing is actually usually pretty good. Their reporting is pretty good, and they come with some really unique angles on certain things at certain times. Now, this one right here is a unique angle because there are a lot of people on the outside looking in. Many of you who are entrepreneurs or business professionals outside of the creator economy. I mean, we all know who creators are. We all know it's a thing, but we don't really think that deeply about it because you're not trying to do it, and you understand that other people do, but you don't really hear that much about it. So when an article like this comes out, it's going to gain attention. So Taylor Lorenz did a follow-up thread and a follow-up article on what I addressed in 1862, and that's what we're talking about here today is the follow-up. Now, the angle that she took in this article, and who knows if this was her idea, it probably was, because I've seen some of Taylor's other works in the past, and the New York Times definitely happily co-signed this one. Now the angle is about the black creators. This is what she talked about this time. It's the black creators on the Instagrams and the TikToks who are doing all this creating, and they feel like they are getting the short end of the stick financially. They're not making the kind of money they want to make from what they're doing. And what Taylor is hinting at here in this article is that many black creators who all feel like they are being undercompensated for whatever reason, we're going to get into that, they may be uniting now so that they can go on, quote, strike, close quote. They're going to go on strike from social media apps, and they're going to demand their, quote, rights, close quote. All I can give, the first thing I thought when I saw the first tweet in this thread from Taylor Lorenz was LMAO. If you don't know what that stands for, you can Google it. That's the first thing that I thought when I saw that they're going to go on strike to demand rights from the social media apps. But I went and pulled quotes again from this thread, and I like the way they put this thread together because it gives you a pretty good idea of where exactly they're going without even reading the article. I had the article and the quotes, but the quotes are good enough for me to make my points here today because I want to directly address the ridiculousness of this ongoing saga. And it's not really about me railing against the New York Times or even the saga, but it could be because it's my show. I can talk about whatever the hell I want. But it's really about, and when I get to the end of it, you're going to know exactly what it's about, but I'll tell you up front. This is about understanding for all of you out there, especially those of you who want to be creators or you know somebody who does, or maybe you are already a creator, is understanding the dynamics and the structure of business and power and leverage and how you can use the social media platforms instead of having the social media platforms use you. Taylor Lorenz's first article that I talked about in 1862 a couple weeks ago, she was exploring, she didn't say this in so many words, that these creators, many creators, were being used by the social media apps, and they were the ones, the creators were just now finding out that they were being used, even though it's been an open secret for as long as the creator economy has existed. Even before we were calling it that, it's been an open secret that you're getting used by these social media platforms. I told you all, when I joined the YouTube partner program in 2009, I printed out the contract and read it and said, these guys are taking a percentage of money that they have decided. How much are they going to take later? They can just arbitrarily tell me how much of my money they're going to take. They could probably take more later on, and that's exactly what the hell has happened. But again, I realized that in 2009. So how is it now 2021 and the New York Times writing this article as if this is new information? This is not new information. It's just some people don't have the information that has already existed, which is why I am doing my part to make sure that I talk about this. But I want to talk about it from an angle at which you all will understand exactly what's going on, not the softened angle that the New York Times is taking and that others taking. We're gonna address that also in today's masterclass. So let's get right into this. Point number one. The topic once again is that there is no such thing as an underpaid entrepreneur. And you'll understand why that's the title as I get into this. So the first thing I want to tell you all, first let me offer you a disclaimer. For all the full-fledged entrepreneurs out there, for the business people who understand exactly what I talked about in 1690, you understand what I talked about in 1862, maybe and hopefully you found it entertaining. Let me offer you a disclaimer. All right, let me tell you something just between me and you. I fully understand what the New York Times is doing. I fully understand why they're doing it. The New York Times over the last, let's just say from about the last 6 years, ever since Donald Trump got involved in politics, the New York Times has jumped to this super woke position. Again, on anything involving race or politics, they jumped into the wokeness. Now, whether you agree with their wokeness or you disagree with their wokeness or you are indifferent to it, you would have to agree that they have jumped into the wokeness. All right, if you disagree, then please text me and explain to me how you could possibly not see that. And again, my number is 305-384-6894. Anything race related that the New York Times can publish that will make black folks look like victims of anything that has the white man's fingerprints on it, New York Times is going to jump on it. And I'm not even mad about it. I just understand it. I see it. I know this. It's fun for me to point it out because I know many people don't notice the game that the New York Times is playing. But listen, the New York Times knows exactly what they're doing. New York Times are not dummies. As a matter of fact, one of their higher up editors is a woman by the name of Bari Weiss, B-A-R-I, Weiss. She wrote this public resignation letter from the New York Times. When was this? Was it maybe last year? I think it was last year that she wrote this letter and publicly resigned and published the letter as to why she was resigning. And she explained pretty much the wokeness that the New York Times had jumped into, that things had gotten to the point at the New York Times. And mind you, she was a high up editor, which means she gets to make decisions as to what comes out and what doesn't come out and what angles and stories will be allowed to be published to the public and which angles would not. Even she had people above her who wouldn't allow certain types of stories to come out and certain types of reporting to be done because the New York Times had gone so woke. So go look up that article by Bari Weiss. She has her own Substack now where she basically gets paid she crowdsources from her audience to do her writing and her work. And I don't agree with everything that Bari puts out, but that resignation letter that she put out will give you a good insight as to what's happening at a lot of news outlets, and the New York Times being as big as they are, once known as the paper of record. I believe they have lost that title though because of the wokeness that they jump into, but that's a different conversation for a different day. The point that I'm making here is that the New York Times knows what they're doing. I know what they're doing, and maybe you know what they're doing. And they're very smart people working at the New York Times. I always stress this when I talk about these things, that they're doing the hustling, they're race hustling you, and they're political hustling you. These people are not dummies, okay? I'm not telling you that they're hustling you and they don't know the hustle. They know the hustle. They are betting on the fact that you don't understand the hustle, and that's why they can keep roping you in with the stories that they're putting out, or just pulling the wool over people's eyes. Now, one thing they do succeed at is drawing attention to it, because even though I understand it, here I am talking about it on my show. I can be talking about anything that I want to talk about. I've chosen to talk about this, so they are drawing that kind of attention. But I don't think this is the kind of attention that they want, because I'm going to point out their bullshit, and hopefully it will open the eyes of some people the more that I talk about it. But the thing is, as I'm saying, New York Times knows what they're doing. There are smart people working there. So for me, this is kind of like exercise on one hand, that I can notice and read between the lines of the bullshit that they are throwing out there with the woke arguments. On the other hand, this masterclass is aimed at, as I said, helping you understand the dynamics of business and power, understanding how the world works in general, and how it works in ways that will never be changed by any election, by any legislation. When you do not have leverage in life, you can't make demands. Keep that line in mind, what I just said. When you do not have leverage, you cannot make demands. If you want to make demands, you must be in demand. And guess when I told you that? Episode 1641. You must be in demand to make demands. And what's happened with these two articles that Ms. Lorenz has put out regarding social media and the creators who feel like they are not getting their just due is that they think they can make demands. Well, actually, no, they don't think they can make demands. They're making these half-assed demands, because they're really making demands. They wouldn't need to give their gripes to the New York Times, now would they? They would just make their demand, they would just get what they want, and it would be over. It wouldn't be a story to tell. The fact that they're even telling their story and telling their sob stories to tell Lorenz, and she's publishing it in the New York Times, and the New York Times is amplifying it, is proof that they have no leverage. Because if they had leverage, again, they wouldn't need to bitch to the world about their situation. They would just get whatever they wanted, because they would just say, hey, this is what we want, and if you don't do this, we're going to do this. That's what they call leverage. If you don't have any, then your next option is you got to bitch and complain about it and protest, and hopefully somebody feels sorry for you, like the New York Times. But again, we're going to go into that right here in today's masterclass. Understand that there are things that are never changing. All right, no matter who the president is, no matter how many people organize to complain, no matter how many news articles get written about something. But since social media is as popular as it is, and we all use it, other people, not Dre Baldwin, keep injecting race into these conversations to make black people look like helpless victims. Listen, I can't not speak on it. I wouldn't be doing my duty of having a daily show and not speak on these things. So I had a person, it might have been more than one person, reach out to me and say, Dre, well, why are you talking about these topics that involve race? It seems like you're talking about these things more often. Listen, people are talking about these race topics every single day. I don't talk about it every day. Look down my episode list. Go to workonyourgamepodcast.com. Look at the list of episodes that I put out on this show. You tell me what percentage am I talking about race? Race is talked about every day by some of these people, and this is their gambit. This is the game that they're playing. I bring it up and talk about it when it's something that I can relate back to a work on your game philosophy topic. But I just want to make sure I'm making that clear, because sometimes there have been people who have come to me with that point. So here we are. That's the reason why we're talking about this, because I already talked about it on the business angle. Now she's bringing up the black angle, but we're going to talk about business. And at the end, I'm going to give you something about since they wanted to inject race in this, I guess I have to address that as well. I don't need to, but I will. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is there's no such thing as an underpaid entrepreneur. So one thing that I do like about the way Ms. Lorenz and the New York Times put these articles out is that they use a lot of quotes from the people that they're talking about and talking to. So I'm going to give you these quotes, and then I'm going to give you my assessment of the quote and help you understand the reading between the lines of what's being said in these quotes, what's actually happening, so that you know what's going on if you ever find yourself in the same position that these individuals are in. And maybe some of you are in this position right now. Point number 2, here it is. Here's the first quote. Quote, "We are being exploited, and that's the core issue black folks have always had in terms of labor." Close quote. This is by this guy named Eric. And I'm going to give you a couple quotes from Eric, and then we're going to address all of them at once. Here's another quote. "These millions of likes that should all translate to something. How do we get real money, power, and proper compensation we deserve?" Close quote. That's a question. All right, here's another quote. Same guy. "The strike is to send a message. The business models of these apps, they have us out here overworking and being underpaid. We're working long hours, but at the end of the day, we're still making little to nothing, and we black creators are making even less." All right, close quote. All right, now that's a mouthful what Eric said in these 3 different quotes. I mean, I could do a whole episode just on these 3 quotes. I wish I could talk to Eric directly, because Eric obviously has a lot to learn about business. Or either Eric has a lot to learn about business, or Eric is a genius who's just pulling the wool over other people's eyes. He knows exactly what's going on, but he's painting himself as a victim because he sees the business opportunity in doing so. So it's either one. I don't know. I don't know Eric. Don't know his last name. It could be either one. But let's just assume that there are people who read these quotes and they take it as actual and factual and logical, but they are not. But I'm going to explain to you why. So let's address these one at a time. First of all, if you are a creator on a social media app and you believe you are not making as much money as you should based on your analytics or based on your vanity metrics, that does not mean you are being exploited. Right? That is not exploitation. What is happening is that you clearly do not understand the business that you're in. That's actually what's happening. So if you think that you are being exploited, let's get, you know what, because I like to give definitions when I use these words on the show. So let's get clear on what this word exploit actually means. Let's get a definition of the word so that we all can be on the same page. The definition of exploit means to make full use of and derive benefit from. So Eric is saying that social media apps are deriving benefit from the creators who use the social media apps. Well, technically, are they deriving benefit from these people? Of course they are, because you are using the app, and when you create, you draw attention that draws eyeballs, and you get people's time spent on that app, and then the apps can serve ads and they can make money from those ads, and of course they are benefiting from that. But at the same time, you are benefiting as well, because you are drawing an audience, you are building your brand, you are getting a dopamine hit every time you get a new notification of a new like or a new comment or a new follower. So it's kind of a symbiotic relationship. You're getting something, they're getting something. That is not exploitation. The way that he's using exploit in this context is that a whole bunch is being taken from him, but he's not getting anything back in exchange. I would not call this exploitation. You knew exactly what you were signing up for. There's nowhere in the TikTok terms of agreement that says if you get X number of likes, you should make X number of dollars. It doesn't say that on any social media app. So for them to frame this as they're being exploited, as if there's something going on here they didn't know was going to happen. Well, maybe they didn't know because they don't know about business, but there was no explicit or implicit, what's the word that I'm looking for here? Nothing offered by these social media apps that said you were going to get anything that you're not getting right now. They didn't lie to you. All right, you just thought it was going to be more than what it was. So you definitely can't call this exploitation. It's clearly people just not understanding the business that they're in. And understand these words that he used in one of his quotes. He said, "How do we get the money, power, and compensation that we deserve?" That was the phrase that he used. Money, power, and compensation that we deserve. Let me explain something to everybody here. It has nothing to do with social media or being a creator, but you can utilize this in any aspect of your life. Money, power, and compensation are not things that you deserve. All right, you cannot deserve money, power, and compensation. Those are not deserved assets. I did an episode on deserving things back in episode number 1215. Does everyone deserve a chance? In episode 650, I told you that you deserve to believe in yourself. And also told you in episode 1795 that female athletes do not deserve, quote, equal pay, close quote. And don't take anything that I said in any of those titles out of context or listen to the full episode. That's why I do this show. Anyway, these things are taken. Nobody gives you money and compensation because you deserve it. People give you money and compensation because it's in their best interest to give it to you. For example, if LeBron James goes to the LA Lakers and says, all right, I want $30 million per season to play for this team, and the Lakers say, well, no, we only want to give you 20. LeBron will say, well, fuck you, I'm going to go play for the Knicks. And they're going to give me 30, and he's going to go play for the Knicks. And if the Lakers don't want him to follow through on that threat, they'll find another 10 and give him the 30 that he wants. All right, that's how you get money and compensation in life. Not because you deserve it, but because you have a better option and you have some leverage with which you can demand it. I told you in life that there are 3 levels to making money. There are only 3 levels to making money in life. Let me make sure I tell you what episode that was. That was episode number 915. The only 3 ways anyone earns money in life. And this is a very important episode here, episode 915. I would suggest no matter what you do for a living, even if you're doing nothing right now, listen to episode 915 twice. The only 3 ways you earn money in life. Number 1, you accept something. Number 2, you negotiate. Number 3, you demand. Where are these creators at? They can't demand anything because they have no leverage. They can't really negotiate because, again, you have no leverage. To negotiate, you need some form of leverage. All they can do is accept. And that's where they're at right now. They're accepting what they are getting from these apps. They're complaining. Complaining is not one of the 3 ways to make money. All right, is accept, negotiate, demand. All right, they're at the acceptance level. They want to get to the demanding level, but they have no leverage, so they can't get there. So now, instead of figuring out how to get there, they're complaining about it to the New York Times, which is not really going to change anything. It's just going to draw attention to them and make them look weak. But I mean, I got a whole masterclass on coming on how being a victim is like the new power position in this world. But we'll talk about that when we get to that masterclass. These things must be taken. All right, power is never given. All right, you can't deserve power. That doesn't even make any sense. You ever heard anybody say that? I deserve more power. I've never heard anybody use that phrase. Why? Because it doesn't exist. There's no such thing. Power is something that you take. If you want these things, you must be willing to take them. And to take something, you need leverage. You need you need something that can move another entity in the direction that you want to move it to. You need some kind of influence. Read the book, The 48 Laws of Power, so you can learn these things so you're not complaining about something that you think you deserve when you actually, what the real issue is, you just don't have the power to take it. See, the very quotes that these creators are giving, explaining their problems, all right, they just don't see it. They're explaining their own problems in the very quotes that they're giving. The fact that this person said, we deserve money, power, and compensation explains that he doesn't know how to get money, power, and compensation because he's thinking he deserves it. You don't deserve shit. In the previous article that I talked about in 1862, with quotes from Miss Lorenz, she referred to creators as entrepreneurs. She said this is the fastest growing small business industry. She called them entrepreneurs. And I would think that creators see themselves as entrepreneurs. They definitely don't see themselves as employees. Like YouTube and Instagram and TikTok can't tell a creator what they have to do and when and why and where they have to do it. I don't think any creator would accept that. So I think creators look at themselves as entrepreneurs. But let me explain something to everyone here. There is no such thing as an underpaid entrepreneur. That does not exist. Is an oxymoron. You can't be an underpaid entrepreneur. All right, the very definition of entrepreneurship is that you eat what you kill. All right, I gave you the whole definition of being an entrepreneur back in episode 1862. I've given this definition several times on the show, but let me give it to you one more time just to make sure everybody knows. Entrepreneur is a person who organizes and operates a business or businesses taking on greater than normal financial risks in order to do so. So I'll ask the same questions today that I asked in episode 1862. What financial risk do you take on to start an Instagram account? How much financial risk did you take on to start your TikTok? How much money did you have to put up to start a YouTube channel? None, and none. So since you didn't put any money up, first of all, by definition, you are not an entrepreneur. And second of all, you don't really have any skin in the game. You have no skin in the game if you just open up your phone and start making TikTok videos. What did you really invest? Nothing. You didn't invest any hard assets into that. I get it. You're giving your time, money, attention, energy, and focus. Maybe not money, but time, attention, energy, and focus. You are investing in building something that could become worth something. But we're talking about in a tangible, hard sense. You don't have any leverage because you didn't put the money up. You know that the TikTok app, has any of you ever developed an app? You know how much money it costs to develop an app? Or it's not free. Those designers, those coders, they don't work for free. So if you didn't put any of the money up to develop that infrastructure, the land on which you are doing all that creating, then you don't have any leverage. And that's what being an entrepreneur is about. An entrepreneur is usually also somewhere in the ownership group. Why? Because they put the money up. They put the blood, sweat, and tears up in addition to putting up some hard asset, or they went and got somebody to put up that hard asset because they were able to make a sale. But there's no such thing as an underpaid entrepreneur. How are you underpaid? Underpaid is communicating that you should be getting more than what you're getting. According to who and from who? Who should you be getting it from? That's like if I said I'm underpaid when it comes to, that's like I said, if I said I'm an underpaid author, well, who owes me money? All right, where do I make my money as an author? It's by selling a book. So if I feel like I'm underpaid, what I need to do is go sell more books. That means I need to go do something. Not somebody else needs to go do something. It means I need to go do something. You eat what you kill when you're an entrepreneur. If you didn't kill anything to start your TikTok account, that's why you have no power. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is that there is no such thing as an underpaid entrepreneur. Here's another quote. I don't know who said this. It's just a quote. Creators, especially black creators, are finally recognizing the value they generate for these multi-billion-dollar tech companies and are asking for more. I'm assuming this comes from Miss Lorenz. Sounds like something written by the author. Let me say that quote one more time. Creators, especially black creators, are finally recognizing the value they generate for these multi-billion-dollar tech companies and are asking for more. So if you're listening to what I just said in point number 2, maybe you can note where this quote is actually answering its own problem within the quote. If you are, and here's me talking now, I'm outside of the quote. If you are asking for something, you're not an entrepreneur. If you're asking for more value for what you do, you are not in a position of leverage, meaning you don't have any leverage because you don't have any skin in the game. There's a book called Skin in the Game written by Nicholas Nassim Taleb. If you haven't read that book, I suggest you read it. It is very, Mr. Taleb is very, how do I say it? His book is very wordy. All right, it takes a high level of concentration. It's the best way I can describe to read his book, but it is worth it because it's about this whole concept, having some skin in the game. When you have skin in the game, then you have a say. You're in the room, you have a seat at the table, and you can call shots. But if you don't have any skin in the game, then you end up in this situation. As I just explained, as I have explained many times, complaining about the situation. People who have skin in the game don't complain about things. You know what they do? They just make adjustments however they want to adjust things. Why? Because they got the power to do so. If you hear somebody complaining about a situation not being to their liking, it's because they probably don't have any skin in the game. Therefore, they don't have the power to alter things the way they want to alter, or at least have a conversation with the person they need to have a conversation with about altering things. If you're hearing about it and you're not one of the people that needs to be talked to, that should give you a hint as to the person that's talking has no leverage. That's why they're complaining to you instead of talking to the person that they actually need to be talking to, because they don't have the leverage to have that conversation. This is how power works. This is just a dynamic of power. Again, read the 48 laws of power. If you are asking for more value, you're not an entrepreneur. You're not in control. You don't have power. The question is, why is this? Why don't you have power? Because you didn't put the tangible assets up. You didn't put the money up. See, again, the definition of entrepreneur is a person who takes on greater than normal financial risk. How much does it cost you to start an account on any one of these social media apps? It costs you nothing. All right, so those you think that is free is not free. All right, you think it's free. That's the reason why so many of us use them, because it's quote unquote free. But in exchange for that free app, they get all the power and they get all the leverage. All right, this is just the way that it works, folks. Point number 4. Today's topic, once again, is there is no such thing as an underpaid entrepreneur. Now, there's a woman named Lee Jin who was quoted in this article by Taylor Lorenz. Now, Lee is an investor who has a company that, and this is based on the bio in her company's Twitter account, quote, empowers people to pursue their passions. Now, this company that she has is like an angel investment company. So she invests in companies and she helps teach people how to invest. So I like the angle that Lee has, is teaching people how to invest. So let me give you the quote that Lee was quoted as saying in this Taylor Lorenz article. Here's the quote. If we don't offer this class of workers protections and rights, they're going to become increasingly disenfranchised, close quote. Well, no shit, Lee. You're absolutely right. They will become increasingly disenfranchised. Here's the problem, though. Here's the problem with Lee's quote. Even though she is on a much better trajectory than Taylor Lorenz is, at least when it comes to entrepreneurship, probably because Lee is an entrepreneur and Taylor, I don't think she is. It doesn't sound like she is. But anyway, she's working for New York Times, so who knows? There's no such thing as protecting an entrepreneur. Let me repeat that. There is no such thing as protecting an entrepreneur, at least not in entrepreneurship. Again, the definition, the person who organizes a business taking on greater than normal financial risks in order to do so. That's the very point of being an entrepreneur, is that you're not being protected. And that's why your upside is unlimited. Now, if you want protection, then in order to get that protection, you must sell a little bit of your upside for the protection. Or we call that employment. And there's nothing wrong with employment. There's nothing wrong with entrepreneurship. You just need to understand the difference between the two. You have to give up some of that upside in order to get protected. That's the game that you're in, no matter which one you choose. If you want protection, okay, become an employee, you work for someone else, and you can depend on the boss to protect you for as long as they choose to do so. This is the game, either way. Lee's thread, she had a whole thread talking about social media creators and how she thinks they can be helped. That was independent of Taylor Lorenz's thread. I just went to her Twitter feed and I saw she had it pinned at the top of her feed. Now, her thread made much more sense than Taylor's. But again, as I said, people who work at the New York Times are very, very smart individuals. So Taylor may know everything that I'm talking about here today, and she's just doing it to get her clicks and likes and get her paycheck from the New York Times. Or she may be completely a fool who actually believes the things that she's writing in the New York Times, and she really wants to push this because she really believes in the things that she's saying. We will never actually know. Maybe one day we will, but I don't think so. Thus, again, this is the game. Right? This is the game that you need to understand. You who's listening, you need to understand this, that these people who may be saying things that you don't necessarily believe in, or things that maybe you weren't even paying attention to until I pointed them out, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, damn, Dre's so smart. Things that he's saying, this person who wrote this must be an idiot. They might not be an idiot. They might actually be very smart and know exactly what they're doing, but they're just doing a hustle so that they can get their check, and this is just the game that they're playing. Same way when I talked about anti-racism, Mr. Kendi, who wrote that book, look, he might be smart enough to know exactly what he's doing, or he may actually believe the stuff that he's saying. It may be a combination of both. We'll never know, because you can't read another person's mind. I just want to arm you with understanding what's going on out here so that you're not the one getting played. So if somebody's getting played, just make sure it's not you. Point number 5. Today's topic, once again, there is no such thing as an underpaid entrepreneur. Here's another quote. Well, this one comes from a woman by the name of Kaylin Castle, who is noted as a black creator living in Atlanta, and she said the following, quote, "We are working so hard to sustain these apps while trying to build something for ourselves and getting little to nothing out of it. These apps expect us to just be happy with just building an audience," close quote. All right, let me give a public service announcement for everyone, including Miss Kaylin Castle. This is what she said. She said, "We're working so hard to sustain these apps and getting little to nothing out of it. They expect us to be happy with just building an audience." All right, so Kaylin, check this out. You and every other creator out there who thinks you are sustaining the apps, all right, you are nothing but a mere cockroach to social media apps. And they will, whenever they feel like it, get rid of you and crush you like the cockroach that you are, as to paraphrase Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank. All right, you are not sustaining anything. You are not sustaining TikTok. None of you who's listening to me now, you're not sustaining Instagram or Apple or YouTube or LinkedIn or whatever other platform you think you're somebody because you have followers, or you got a blue check, or you just put up a post that went viral, or whatever it is that you think has you as hot shit on any of these platforms. You are nothing to them. You are nothing but a mere cockroach. And let me explain to you why. Because if you deleted your account, or you died tomorrow, or you just disappeared, or your account got destroyed for whatever reason, is that app going to stop working? Are they going to have a moment of silence for you? Will anybody even notice that you're gone? Maybe the last one, maybe your followers, but all the other questions, no, nobody gives a damn. And guess what? As soon as you leave, how many people are going to come in to fill the void of your absence? Probably 10 for every one person who leaves. You are not sustaining anything. So somebody lied to you if you think your presence means that much to any one of these apps. You are a nobody to them. Taylor, Miss Lorenz, who wrote this article, she should be ashamed to have even printed this dumbass quote in the article. All right, this reminds me of a story. I was working at LA Fitness a while back, and I was selling personal training. And I remember one of the trainers there, this guy named Mike. He was doing something there as a trainer, and Mike was pretty popular. He was one of the most popular trainers there. He was probably one of the top 3 in terms of having clients who would come into LA Fitness to work specifically with Mike. And Mike was an older guy, black guy. He looked like he knew his stuff, well known, had a lot of female clients. They liked him a lot. And one day he did something, and the managers at the LA Fitness came in, reprimanded Mike and let him know, like, yo, what you just did, you can't be doing that. And Mike was kind of perturbed with the fact that the managers had come and chided him for what he did. So Mike was venting to me. And Mike was saying to me, you know what, Dre, man, these dudes coming on tell me I can't do this, I can't do that. You know, I'm doing them a favor by having all my clients come in here and having them go through LA Fitness to pay me. You know what I'm saying? I could go out in a parking lot and train all my clients and keep all the money myself. You know, they acting like, you know, and he was like, you know, I'm doing them a favor by even being here and doing the things that I'm saying. I didn't say anything to Mike, but I was thinking that at that moment when Mike said that to me, this was probably 2008, when this happened, maybe 2007, I was thinking the same thing I'm going to say to you now, that I would have said to Mike if I thought he was in a state to actually listen to it, which he was not. Who knows where Mike is these days? Shout out to Mike. Is this, Mike, if you truly believe that shit that you just said, you wouldn't be working here. You would just have your own personal training business, and you'd be doing exactly what you just talked about doing on your own, and you never would have got this job in the first place. If he really believed that, he would have walked out right there at that moment, told them that he quit, called all his clients, and they all would have came and worked with him in the parking lot like he said he could. Now, Mike, I kept working at LA Fitness after that. When I stopped working there, Mike was still working there. All right, so Mike didn't really believe what he was saying. I understand he was probably just pissed off in a moment. But at the same time, Mike understood unconsciously, or maybe when he calmed down and really got to think about it, he understood that the infrastructure that LA Fitness provided was why they got a cut of every one of his training clients' money. If his clients paid 50, LA Fitness got, who knows, 25, who knows, whatever it was. And there was a reason for that, because they had the facility, they had the brand name, they provided the peace of mind, they provided all of the equipment, the workout gear, the air conditioning, the locker rooms, the bathrooms. Mike, you ain't got no facility. So where are all these people going to do all this stuff that you're talking about? You could train them in the parking lot. I'm not saying you can't train people in the parking lot. I know plenty of personal trainers who independently just roll around and do their thing with their own equipment, and you know, they make it work. I understand. It can be done, but Mike wasn't doing that. Mike was working at LA Fitness. So it's the same thing with these creators who are talking about they're sustaining the app. No, the hell you ain't. Because guess what? Mike probably eventually stopped working at that LA Fitness. And you know what LA Fitness did? Not a damn thing. It didn't even notice the Mike was left. All right, that cockroach left. Let's bring another one in. All right, let's replace Mike with somebody else. I'm not saying being an employee makes you a cockroach. I'm just using that as a metaphor. So any creator, you think you're sustaining the app. All right, leave the app and let's find out if that's true. Now, you wouldn't do that. Delete your account and let's find out if you're actually sustaining the app. All right, and you'll find out very quickly that that app didn't even notice that you left. And every creator knows this to be true, which is why none of them would actually follow through on these threats. We're sustaining them. Okay, if you believe that, prove it. And since you won't prove it, shut the hell up and listen and learn something about business, learn something about the dynamics of power. Okay, Taylor again should not have even printed this dumbass quote in the article. All right, they do not need you. It's always funny to me when people say this kind of stuff, and then after they say it, then they go the next day and go make a new video and post it on TikTok and see how many likes they get, even though they're the ones doing all the sustaining of the app. My answer to that, LOL. Point number 6. Today's topic, once again, is there is no such thing as an underpaid entrepreneur. Another quote. Quote, the shift away from dance takes even more of the megaphone away from these black creators, says this woman named Kwasi Ohene Adu. Now, I know I'm probably mincing the pronouncement of her name, but I'll spell the last name for you. It's OHENE-ADU. Now, Kwasi owns a platform where creators do actually get to own their content. Now, this platform I had never heard of. I didn't even know the name of it, but I did read it. And obviously, they're trying to offer an alternative to these bigger platforms so that creators can actually own the material that they're creating. The thing is, here's the issue for Kwasi and her app is that when you put content on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok, you do own the content. What you don't own is the access to the people. That's the thing that people actually want to own, is not the content. I told you, why did Facebook offer billions of dollars to buy Snapchat? Not because of the content that Snapchat had. There were people on Instagram putting up the same content. What they had was the infrastructure and the access to all the people. It was the email list that made Snapchat so valuable. And the value of Snapchat is still in the email list that they have. Yes, the infrastructure of the story thing was a cool function, and Instagram went and copied it, and now Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, everybody has it now. But it's the access of those people who are on Snapchat. That's what makes Snapchat worth money. Snapchat can sell their company for a nice amount of money, life-changing money right now to some company. Might not be as much as Facebook offered back in the day, but a good amount of money just because of their list. It's because of that contact list. It is not because of the infrastructure or the content itself. So Kwasi, what she's saying doesn't quite make sense. And she's saying that what they were talking about is dance, is that a lot of black people, allegedly, I don't know, follow these trends, but allegedly a lot of black people made up dances to music that they would put on these social media apps. And that was one of the things that was kind of driving the creativity or driving the attention that these apps were getting, allegedly. We're going to assume that this is accurate. But of course, that this being a New York Times article, this being Miss Taylor Lorenz, of course they had to find this black angle to elongate this bullshit narrative. And here's the reason why I brought this up. Here's the reason why I pulled this quote specifically for this article. And this is my last point here today. This kind of shit is what black people don't need to be paying attention to. Okay, so when it comes to what we're doing business-wise, the stuff that I talked about in 1862, 1690, and this one, every other episode where I've talked about entrepreneurship, these are the kind of things that we need to be focusing on. That if we're going to have an article written about black people and creators or industry in any way in the New York Times, it needs to be focused on, let's understand the dynamics of business. Let's understand how these businesses actually work, how power actually works. How do you actually get some leverage? Instead of us talking about, well, no, nobody's creating dances on TikTok anymore because we're not making enough money. What, really? That's what we're going to focus on? That's what we're gonna spill ink on. New York Times. I'm not expecting the New York Times to stand up to any standards when it comes to what black people need to be doing. New York Times is owned by a bunch of white people, and I ain't got nothing against white people. But the point is, they're gonna do this article, and black people are buying into this shit because this victimhood thing sells pretty well. I think many of you who have, if you've been paying attention to anything over the last year plus, you probably know about this. I told you in episode 1613 why victimhood sells. Victimhood is popular for some very legitimate reasons, at least when it comes to human psychology. But instead, we're focusing on things like critical race theory. Got a masterclass on that coming. Protesting the cops, taking pictures next to the George Floyd statues. This is the shit that really matters for black empowerment and advancement, is the business stuff. Is understanding human nature, is understanding how do you actually build something that's worth something? How do you actually build some value in yourself? How do you get some equity in what you're doing? How do you create leverage for yourself? Learning what business is and how you can be involved in it. That's what we need to be talking about. But as long as we're buying into these bullshit stories and what needs to be done for us, how someone has done us wrong or someone has done you wrong, these cycles are just going to keep repeating themselves. And this is what keeps happening. The thing is, we have people out there. It's not just me talking about this. There are people out there who understand everything that I've said here today just as well as I say it. They would say it in a different way, maybe could say it even better, maybe even have some other information that I didn't share here today. But the challenge is many of those people, and these are black people, white people, whatever, many of them aren't like me in that when they do talk about these things and they would address these points that Ms. Lorenz put in her article, they would address them just as well and beat them down the same. They would angle to beat them down the same way that I angle to beat them down. The problem is when they address them, they pacify the bullshit. In other words, they would say it, but they would soften it so much that you wouldn't get the point. The thing with me is, and I think any of you who's listened to enough episodes of this show can attest to, if I'm telling you something that I'm not agreeing with, you know that I'm not agreeing. All right, I make it pretty clear, even if I don't say the words I don't agree, you understand the angle from which I'm taking it and the language that I'm using, that, okay, this is some bullshit, and let me tell you why. What happens, though, with a lot of people is that when they are going at some point that they don't agree with, they soften it so much that you don't even get, are they agreeing, or are they disagreeing, are they making a counterpoint, are they saying the same thing? You can't even quite get it, because people are there's so many people with no balls these days, because nobody wants to be attacked. Nobody wants to be on the wrong side of any conversation. Nobody wants to get canceled. And then people are just afraid to say anything. And this is not just limited to white people, it's black people as well, because they don't want to go against the grain and feel like that they're not with the group. And this is what we've created. We've all created this, and we have all contributed to it in some way, consciously or unconsciously, and it keeps the shit alive. So we need some more people, and hopefully some of them are in this audience right now, who have the balls to smack down the bullshit and clearly smack it down in such a way that people know exactly what you're saying, so that everybody can move forward. I don't know if there are any in this audience, but hopefully I'm speaking to one of you today. So let's recap today's class, which is there is no such thing as an underpaid entrepreneur. Now, again, Ms. Taylor Lorenz, after I talked about her article from episode 1862, she came out with a new one. This time it was from the black creator angle. It was a lot of the same material, but now it's about black creators. They're all of a sudden being disenfranchised by social media apps, which logically makes no sense. But let's address it. Number one, disclaimer is I fully understand what they're doing. Anything race related with New York Times to make blacks look like victims, they're going to jump all over it, because this is just their business model. I'm not even mad at them for doing it. I understand the game that they're playing. I just want to make sure you understand the game that they're playing. So anything that can make blacks look helpless and look like victims, they're going to speak on it, and I'm going to speak on it as well. But we're speaking from two different sides of the conversation. So here we are. Number two, many of the quotes from today, from the influencers in these articles, I'm not going to read the quotes again, but one of the things I will point out is that you are not being exploited when you just don't understand the business that you're in. All right, it's not exploitation if you're getting something for free. You put no money up. The other side of it put all the money up. They put all the infrastructure down, and now you're complaining that they're not giving you enough money. But they already gave you a platform in the first place. How much did you pay for that platform? You pay zero. Now, TikTok start charging you for that platform, then maybe you have a leg to stand on, but they're not going to do that, because it's too easy to get people to come in free, and then they can just use you up while you give all your value to the app, not because they're malicious, but because people just don't understand the business. And when you understand the business, you understand there's no such thing as an underpaid entrepreneur. All right, you get paid whatever you earn as an entrepreneur. There's no set salary, there's no set structure, and there's nothing that is owed to you. That's why you have no power. Point number three, if you are asking for something, you're not an entrepreneur. All right, you cannot be an entrepreneur asking for power or asking for attention or asking for compensation. You're not in control. The question is, why are you not in control? It's because you didn't put the money up. Definition of entrepreneur is a person who takes on normal then greater financial risk in order to start their endeavor. Point number four, Lee Jin, who is an investor and helps other people invest, has a better angle, but she says something, if we don't give these people protection and rights, they're going to become disenfranchised. Well, she's right. The thing is, entrepreneurs don't get protections. No, they have rights, but you don't get protections, at least not when it comes to your work. By the definition of being an entrepreneur, that's the game that you're in. Again, you get unlimited upside as an entrepreneur because there is no protection. If you want protection, you got to give up some of that upside, and they call that employment. That is the game. Point number five is a person who said these apps expect us to be happy with just building an audience, and we're sustaining these apps, which is one of the worst. It is the worst quote in this article. Makes no sense. Reminds me of the trainer at LA Fitness, Mike, who said, well, I'm doing them a favor by having all my clients come through LA Fitness. Mike, no, you're not. They're doing you a favor by giving you a job here, because there are 1,000 trainers who will gladly take your job and your clients if you quit. And most of your clients will not work out with you in a parking lot. They work out with you because of the convenience and infrastructure that LA Fitness provides. Now, again, we need more people who will tell people that thing, that will give them that logic to their face so that they stop pacifying themselves and bitching and whining and feeling like victims, no matter what topic we happen to be talking about, business, race, politics, whatever. And this is what black people need to be focusing on. And at least we need more people who are focused on it, who will articulate it and say it with some damn, grab their testicles and say it out loud instead of pacifying and softening their points, because then people are not really understanding what you're saying. We need people with balls to say these things so that we can actually advance and move people forward if we're going to make it about race. But this could be for anyone who's going to be in the creator economy. Understand the business that you're in, understand how business and power work, and understand that nobody owes you anything. And if you step into the world of entrepreneurship, you have no safety net. That is the very definition of the word. If you don't want to be in a position of not having a safety net, you want to be protected, go get a job. There's nothing wrong with that, but understand the game that you're in and understand the rules of that game. And then don't bitch about it when you get into a game and you're the idiot who didn't know what you were doing. Send me a text. Tell me the best insight you got from today's masterclass or the worst one. My number is 305-384-6894. Work on your game. Dre all day.